Live stream sound test. Live stream sound test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, we're just a couple of minutes late. We were just waiting for everybody to gather round and just make sure we had those online that we expected. So just for the benefit of those who perhaps might be listening in, just welcome to the Licensing Committee of the 16th of September 2024. So what I'm going to do is just as I normally do and get everybody to introduce themselves, if that's okay. And if I could start with Councillor Pounds, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Pounds. I represent Romsey Ward.
I'm Councillor Griffin, Coleridge Ward.
Councillor Hugh Clough, Newnham Ward.
Councillor Flaubert, Trumpington.
The young Queen Ediths.
Councillor Blackburn Horgan, also Queen Ediths.
Councillor Jerry Bird, Vice Chair.
Councillor Rachel Wade, West Chesterton.
Councillor Rosie Moore, Coleridge Ward.
Luke Catchpole, Environmental Health and Licensing Support Team Leader.
Ian Hawkins, Legal Representative.
Yvonne O'Donnell, Environmental Health Manager.
Sarah Steele, Committee Manager.
Okay, that's absolutely great. Thank you very much, everyone. I don't think we have any apologies. We have a full house, I do believe. How lovely.
Chair, apologies.
Oh, we do have.
Sorry, we've got apologies from Councillor Bick, but Councillor Flaubert is attending as alternate.
That's how I understood it. Yeah, you saved me saying that, so thank you for that. That's absolutely good. Welcome. Declaration of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest to be declared now? I will remind members, of course, I'm sure don't need to, that you can declare them at any time as the meeting progresses, should you find that situation changes. Minutes of the last meeting, everybody read those? Everybody happy? Any questions from that? Absolutely lovely. Thank you so much. So that takes us swiftly on to public questions. And so what I'm going to do with that, Mr. Wennick's online. We have 2 questions tabled from him. I've got those in front of me now. And have members seen the text of that? Okay. In that case then, Mr. Wennick, can you hear us?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? Good morning.
We have the 2 questions. You don't need to read those out, but I'm okay if you do, but you don't need to because we have the text of them. So, did you wish to read them out?
Okay. No, sorry, I can't even see them at the moment. So no, I thought you don't. I thought that's the procedure that I don't read them out. I just send them out, and that's how it is. So I can't read them out. I can't see them.
Yeah,
and
that's
it will
absolutely.
take me time to find them now. So.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's fine. That's worked well then. So we'll just go straight into the officer's response to those 2 questions in that case. Yvonne, it's yours.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So with regard to the first question around global digital taxi platforms and the age of young drivers, this part of the first question, I assume that when you talk about public hire fleet, you mean Hackney carriage vehicles. By the nature of jobs, Hackney carriage vehicles pick up from the taxi ranks and are being held down. Hacks are allowed to accept pre-bookings and do not need an operator. Hacks can also allow to take bookings through the private hire operators as long as certain criteria is met. If there are any major global digital taxi booking platforms that the Hackney drivers and vehicles can join, this would be for the individual proprietors and drivers to look into. This isn't the responsibility for the taxi licensing or any conditions on the license. With regard to the age limit, we do not record the information around ages of our new drivers, and we do not know, so we don't know the ages of our drivers, so that's something that's going to be quite difficult for us to administer and accept that statement that's been made by Mr. Winnick. In relation to the second question around wheelchair accessible vehicles, the issue around availability of wheelchair accessible vehicles is a national issue that needs addressing through changes in legislation. Regarding charging wheelchair users extra is illegal. It quite clearly states in the Equalities Act that drivers are not to make or propose to make any additional charges for complying with the duty mentioned in paragraphs A to E of the Equalities Act. Thank you.
Any questions for the officer? Councillor Bird.
I had a bit about charging a bit more, which I agree with what the officer said. But I don't like the thought of we either pay more or we have to wait the hour. That seems a bit unfair, that bit of sentence. And I wouldn't like to see that on any paperwork. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions for the officer before she responds? Okay, John.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Bird. It's not acceptable for anyone to have to wait an hour on a pre-booking. But as we said, this is a national issue across the country, and we need to change national legislation to ensure that the Equalities Act is met properly. That's just not an acceptable standard that we should be expecting people. So absolutely concur with what you've got to say, Councillor Bird.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you, Mr. Rennick, for your questions that have now been answered.
Sorry, I believe I still got 2 minutes for the additional question, don't I?
You would have done if you given me space to tell you that. You do have time for a supplementary question, so that's absolutely fine. So just go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, so I had a different in mind, but as we spoke about this one, then I will just refer to what was said. So, yes, I disagree that we should charge the wheelchair accessible users an extra for bringing the taxi. However, they're not experiencing the same equality as the normal, as the average taxi user, because they don't have an option of the, there's a surge price, but the global and more. The wheelchair users don't have that
Mr.
option
Winnick,
to
Mr.
be
Winnick,
on that
can I
platform
stop
with
you there?
The surge prices. Yeah.
Can I stop you there? We didn't pick a lot of that up, so it doesn't matter about the, you won't lose any time by that, but the last 10 seconds or so, we didn't pick up. So could you go back and just repeat that?
Okay. I will speak slower because I believe there is a low connection on here. So the issue is that the wheelchair accessible user cannot use the global platform which they offering a surge price for average customers. Thanks to the surge price, the average customer can have a taxi much quicker because the driver will choose that job. However, our wheelchair fleet cannot access these platforms just because of Cambridge City over restrictive policy. The national legislation does not restrict us from actions like accessing those platforms. However, Cambridge City policy does. I would like to, as well, say to the licensing committee members to think about the Hackney carriages like this is your fleet. You are the director board of that fleet, your main obligation is to meet public hire customers' needs. The main public hire need is to access your fleet whenever they can, however they can. So bear that in mind, that this is your main obligation. Fulfill customer needs. Customer need is to get the taxi there and then when he needs it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you wish to respond? I'm not sure exactly what the question was, but
All I would say is our policy doesn't restrict people using the platform. That would be a restriction of the operator. Our policy has got no restrictions on people's ability to use platforms. So I'm slightly confused about that statement.
you can come back on that, Mr. Wennick, if you wish, that's fine.
So, we're restricting from issuing double licensing, which, as we know, national legislator does not restrict that for the public hire vehicles. Majority of the taxi vehicles are from the South Camp District Council working in Cambridge City Council. Why Cambridge City Council cannot go with partnership with South Camp District Council and find the solution for it? Instead, you pretending that you can do nothing about it and you leave everything to the national legislator, which clearly won't do nothing about it because there are no issues for him.
Okay, thank you for
Thank
that. You've run out of time on that now, Mr. Wennick, so we'll let the officer respond for that.
I think what you're referring to, Mr. Winnick, is allowing vehicles to be licensed with both the city and South. Our policy and South Council's policy is that that is not practical because we have different liveries, we've got different standards. So yes, our policy is restricting our vehicles from being licensed with both city and South, but that is quite a common practice across the whole country due to the different standards of vehicles, the livery, the electrics, etc. This was brought to committee a few years ago. This was discussed at this committee a few years ago, and we felt that it was more appropriate to ensure the public safety of our vehicles in Cambridge City remains with Cambridge City.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for your questions, Mr. Wennick. We'll now move on. Councillor Hussain, you have kindly sent in the text of the statement that you wish to make, and that's fine. So I haven't actually seen it because it was you actually were out of time to ask for this opportunity. So I've not seen the statement, and I don't think anybody else has. I don't think you probably had the time to see it because it was only able to be sent this morning. But you have 5 minutes to make that statement anyway, so and we'll go from there. Thank you so much.
Good morning and thank you everybody. I am speaking as a councillor and some community what issue they are facing now. I want to share my personal experience, and I have an interest on the business but not personally, and I am not in a committee and I am not voting the policy. I just share some my experience. That's why I am here today. I want to tell a short story. Around 7 years ago, I was working with Panther Taxi, and I get a pre-booked job. Operator call me, they request me, can you help one wheelchair passenger from Camborne GP surgery and going to next village. I will not tell this exact location for his privacy concern, around 2 miles away. And I say, okay, agree. And I drove there and I saw they're already late. Operator tell me before, nearly 2 hours late. They don't get any taxi and cold weather. And as soon as I appear there, I just get some greeting and smiling to make them cool down. But I see their appearance is not very welcoming. And the 4 passengers, one is in a wheelchair, very big man, and I am sure I cannot push him up. He's bigger than me. And he's an assistant and carer with him, very big muscle man. He is with him. I hope everybody will help me. It will be not any issue. And I set my ramp, and that time on his boy, around 55 to 60 years old, and he asked the carer, can you check the ramp? His ramp is safe or not? And the carer jumped on my ramp, a couple of jump, and they say, oh, his ramp is okay. That's fine. And I tried to push him, and I asked him, the carer, can you give me a little help to push him? And he said, no. It is not my responsibility, it is not my duty to push a new taxi. It is your job, you have to do it. I was a little bit surprised. And I know I cannot do it. It's too big. And I still am trying to push, and I asked his son, he's a very young man, around 55, and asked him, and he is nodding his hand. He is not doing. And at the halfway, and I stuck, and I roll him down and put a handbrake on his seat. I said, sorry, it is not safe for me, I cannot help you. And they said, no, we have a contract with you, you have to do your job. I said, I will do which one is safe for me and my passenger. I will not do more than that. And I tried to fold my ramp. And they start shouting. In the meantime, somebody comes from reception, the GP surgery reception. They ask you, okay, I can help you because I have legally responsible to help any wheelchair passenger. And this lady helped me, and I just loaded him. And I finished the journey. And they said they will never book to our company because it's too late. It's fine, it's up to you. But there's a story behind it. It is the poor infrastructure. Because there's no high curb there to place the wheelchair can easily push. Like a bus stop, they have a 10-inch curb. Any wheelchair, they can easily go themselves, even little help. But if you have a ground level or low curb, it's very difficult somebody to push up. It is really challenging for the driver and sometimes high risk for passenger. That's why I ask you to collaborate with the county council, make our infrastructure ready, all the busy places, like a city center, taxi rank, GP surgery, hospital. There should be some, not everywhere slope cars, some place will be high curb where the passenger can easily load it or unload it. And there is another issue, is the shortage of vehicle. That's why they are so angry. It is not my fault. I am a city license holder, Hackney. I should not go in Southcombe to help. But still I am going because Southcombe, they have 1,619 wheelchair vehicle, private hire vehicle, but there are no wheelchair. This council is not supporting this community, but Cambridge City, all the Hackney are driving around to help them. But they are easily get a license from there. Even our Hackney driver, they give a plate back and go to Southcombe and get a private hire license, and they're working in the same platform, very comfortable and earning more money. So how we can commit these things? Number 3, we are despairing between Cambridge City and Southcombe, the licensing policy.
Just to remind you, your 5 minutes is now up, but I'll let you finish what you're saying, of course.
Thank you, sir. Because we have twice a year MOT in Cambridge City for our safety matter, but Southcombe, they have only one MOT, only one MOT year, and we have 2 MOT year. The driver shifting this way, And if they are not safe for drive a taxi in city, why we cannot stop them? South Cam driver, they're working in city all the time. Now start Huntington, Wolverhampton, all the council is coming here. But we are not protecting anything. We are welcoming all the driver come here, whatever they are safe or not safe. And the very strictly get a license in Cambridge City, if you compare other council. But in our digitalization, we need to make it more easier because everyone working on an app, they know how to go place A to B. It is very easy. Like the South Cam, Wolverhampton, yeah, they are coming here, they're working the same place. But our licensing policy is so difficult, somebody get a Hackney or private hire license. That's why we are 80 plate in private hire, and our neighboring council 1,619, and Wolverhampton 86,000 license. So in this time, the digitalization period, why we cannot make our testing system easier to welcoming all the driver to work here?
That's 7 minutes now you've been speaking. Are you speaking on your behalf as a councillor or
Yes.
as a taxi driver?
Now, as a councillor, because this is our community issue.
Okay, because everything we've heard so far is about your job. So, okay, so you've been going for just 7 minutes now. So I'll give you another 2 minutes and then you're done. Okay.
Thank you. And some concern comes our officers and our driver, they comes to me some issue, they comes our digitalization, because somebody get a 3 point in their driving license, in the King Hayes, they are my residents, they comes to me, they get a 3 point, is 6th of June, and they get a letter from council, 25th of May, you not declare your point. So the police write a letter 6th of June, and council write an email to them 2 weeks ago because of digitalization. So this platform we need to shift, we need to change. Because we know council can know easily from the DBLA or the police from digital way, but driver is still getting a letter is a manual way. It takes so long time to get. So we think our whole the system is very old and we need to adapt our digitalization platform. Thank you, Chair, for giving me the time to speak.
Well done. You got it inside those extra 2 minutes. Thank you for that. Will we let the officer respond first, or do you have any? Okay, we'll let Yvonne respond first, and then we'll go to members.
There was quite a few areas of concern raised by Councillor Hussain, but in summary, I think I will just summarise what my view is. Our policy is there for public safety. I don't think a policy can be overly restricted for public safety. The wheelchair issue, as I've already said, is a national issue across the country around availability of wheelchairs. However, we do have 117 wheelchair accessible vehicles in the city. South Cams have 1. So, you know, we are well advanced as far as wheelchair accessibility is concerned to our ability to license these vehicles. However, the testing of our vehicles, the safeguarding of our testing, our knowledge testing is there for a reason, and that is our primary role here as a City Council licensing authority is for public safety. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions, members? Yeah, Karen.
The admin by letter, that seems a bit strange that Councillor Hussain mentioned. Do we not communicate with our taxi drivers by email?
Yes, we do. The letter would have been an email letter.
Any others? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I think a couple of the issues you raised, it would seem appropriate for you to raise them also with the county council and with South Cams, because it seemed more directed at them. And with regards to our high quality licensing that we expect of our drivers, I think, as far as I'm aware, that's something that this council absolutely supports, because it's our priority, public safety. But I would also say that actually that ensures the safety of the drivers too, because the drivers are well trained, the drivers' vehicles, which they're driving around in day after day, are safe. And so I think it's of benefit to both the drivers and the public. And I think it's very much a shame that other councils don't follow our lead. And I would think that other councils could maybe learn from our licensing team, who work so hard in this area, and from our own taxi drivers and hackney carriage drivers, that you set such an excellent high standard. Thank you.
Well, I have nothing to add to that. Anybody else? Please, Councillor Clough.
I think Councillor Hussain was raising the question of high curbs at utility, at GP surgeries and other locations. Is that I don't know that I fully understood what he was saying. We just explain what. Can I just be clear what he was asking for?
I think what Councillor Hussain is asking or requesting is that we work with the county council to increase the height of the curbs. So when wheelchair users are then trying to get into a high level vehicle, they haven't got as far to the ramp. But that comes with a lot of practicalities, and we don't want to then start looking at unintended consequences of starting to raise curbs, because that could have a disadvantage to other people with other needs. So that needs to have very careful consideration with our equalities groups and with all the other groups. So I think it's a tall order for that to be asked of our county colleagues. So I think you are right, Councillor Clough, it was around raising the height.
Thank you.
I can see that being an issue to sight impaired people. Various other disabilities would be affected by that. So although I can see your point, I can see why you said that, I sort of get it from your perspective, but it will have other reaching consequences. Councillor Foppo.
I'm sorry if this question is too difficult to answer, or maybe I'm too stupid to ask this question, but do the taxi drivers have the training necessary when they have to help a person with a disability like a wheelchair? How, I mean, do the customers know that they have to sort of have someone to help them to go into the taxi, or is the responsibility of the taxi driver to fulfill, well, to help them? Thank you.
I just will say there, as you're standing in for Councillor Bick, actually, I think that's a very fair question. So that wasn't a stupid question at all. I think it's a very fair question. Thank you for it.
So it is the responsibility of the driver to aid and support passengers getting into vehicles. So yes, it is their responsibility. With regards to the training, at the moment, they have to do disability training, but that is in the form of text, a video, and so it's part of the safeguarding and knowledge test training that they have to do, but that's a paper exercise. When we come on to the report, which is the next agenda item, one of the things we are looking at to go out to consult is whether there actually needs to be training for drivers to load and unload passengers. So that's a discussion that might take place at the next, but absolutely it is a fair question, and it is something we would like to go out to consult on what sort of training would be available and what would help passengers and drivers, obviously.
Councillor Pounds.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to support very strongly what Councillor Rosie Moore said, and that we as councillors are actually really proud of the high standard that our officers and the City Council take, and the protection that we therefore offer our residents and also our drivers. And I think that that's really, really laudable. And if we do have an opportunity to actually encourage other authorities to take more care over their passengers and their drivers and to follow our example, I think that's something that we would like to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, which is why I said I didn't have anything to add to it. I have Councillor Bird, Councillor Young. Anybody else have I missed? No. Okay, Councillor Bird, it's all yours.
Thank you. Just on that last statement, a lot of disabled people don't want to take someone with them. They want to go out on their own, go shopping. So I wouldn't agree with that. They'd have to have somebody with them. And the other issue on that, what Councillor Hussain has just said, is county issue, highways. It's the same as what the buses do. They have a higher curb, so that he'd have to do that. And I think a lot of disabled people in wheelchairs can help push themselves as well up the ramp. Some can't, some can. So every disability is different. So I think taxi drivers need to understand that. And we try to help as much as we can. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Young.
Thank you. But just following on from that, I mean, I agree with what Councillor Bird has just said, but there is a point. We have to protect our drivers as well. And if they are small people and they've got an enormous, I mean, in a health and safety regulation, you'd never tell someone to be lifting heavy weights in it. So the training will maybe address some of that, but I mean, there must be situations where it's just not possible. I do think it's a bit unfair for the drivers. There's clearly a balance to be had somewhere. I don't think it's as clear cut as it might seem from the discussion up until now.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you mean there. It is a difficult situation because in the end, I guess whatever training you have, it's the driver that's confronted with the situation that they're confronted with. And it is a difficult one. Perhaps we need to speak about that further. But yeah, I get your point. Obviously, we've got to. It's the driver's health and safety as well, isn't it? And they're the ones on the side of the road with the passenger. It can be very difficult. Yeah, and I think it's important that we do understand that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Are there any other Councillor Bird?
Can I come back on that, Chair? I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
There are wheelchair accessible taxis that load you from the back. And they have a little motor they attach to the wheelchair, and it helps take you into the vehicle. So they work really good. I mean, you just have to move 2 seats for the wheelchair to get in. But once you've finished with the wheelchair customer, you then put the seat back down. It's just so easy. So those vehicles are fantastic, and there is a few of them in the city, and they're the ones I use because I know that I can get in it and they will pick me up. So perhaps that's a thing that taxi drivers could perhaps look at, is get rear loading wheelchair accessible vehicles. Thank you, Chair.
Do you actually, pardon me for asking this, but do you actually request that type of vehicle when you call in? Sorry, I've never had to do it.
Yeah, I know the taxi drivers now, and I ring them up, and they come and pick me up.
Oh, so they know that what you require before. Okay, so
yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I think in light of some of those comments, Councillor Moore.
Sorry, I really don't want to extend this any further than it needs to, but just in the interest of equality, I'd just like to say, I'm sure it's not just customers in wheelchairs that can cause difficulties. I'm sure there are plenty of able-bodied customers who maybe have had a few too many drinks, perfectly well get into the vehicle, and then might struggle to get out again. So I would have also thought it's one of the challenges and perils of the job. So I just thought it was important to say that, not that taxi drivers should have to deal with that, I'm absolutely not saying that, but I would just in the interest of equality. Thanks.
No, I think that's very fair. And I think in the interest of fairness, I'm going to do what I always do, break the rules. And I think I'm going to allow Councillor Hussain another 2 minutes. Would you like to respond to some of that? So I'll give you 2, and if you've got a decent argument, I might give you 3 minutes to respond to some of the things that councillors have said. You've taken the time to come here. You've written the statement that I asked you to write. You've done all that. So I think it's only right that we give you a bit of time to respond. Are members happy with that? Okay.
Yes, number one, the high curve, like in front of Addenbrooke's Hospital example, nearly 20 feet in main entrance. On the high curve, we need around like a 2 meter. We don't need to block all the site to make a high curve to make a hazard for others. All the wheelchair accessible vehicle is not a rear loader. Most of them is side loader. So it will be safe if we can. It is a practicality. And if you think it is safe for community, yes, we can go for it. And if you think, oh, it is as it is, we are proud of it, that's fine. I have no argue with it. And the 5 issue I mentioned is like our testing system. We say we are proud of it. Yes, I am with you, we are proud of our testing system. But now, from A to B, example on testing system, so which road you have to take? And it is very easy on Google, they show even live traffic system as well. So we don't need this type of test and make this driver not pass, they cannot pass here. They go to neighboring council and they pass and they work in the same council, same residents they're serving. So that's my question. Do we need still, in the digital time, still our manual system to how to go to Bardwood Road to Addenbrooke's Hospital, which road we need to, because that time there is no map, there is no digital app, but now we have an app. So we can make something shorter and easier and take more driver who can help our community. We don't want to lose our revenue. 1,600 driver, if he's in our city, we get more revenue in our council rather than everyone is go to Southcombe. That's my question. Thank you very much, Chair.
Well done. You kept winning time again. Thank you. So I'll give the last word to the officer to respond to that, should you so wish.
I think what you're referring to is the knowledge test and the shortest distances, I believe. And that is something we are looking at the moment, and we are going to be considering what our safeguarding and knowledge test looks like. We are reviewing that at the moment. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you very much for that item and for coming and speaking on behalf of your colleagues. So thank you for that. That takes us to item 5, which is on page 11, and the changes to Hackney Carriage private licensing policy. Recommendations are at 1.1 on page 11, and we'll go back to it one, I'm sorry, already, if you introduce this item. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So in November 2023, government released Taxi and Private Hire Vehicle Licensing Best Practice Guide for licensing authorities in England. We have reviewed this best practice guide and in line with reviewing our private hire and Hackney Carriage licensing policy. What we've done is we've gone through the policy and looked at a number of changes in the policy. And as part of that review, we identified 21 minor changes that were made to the policy, and these can be viewed as track changes in Appendix 1. They're classed as minor changes as they are not believed to have any impact on the trade or the public. We also then reviewed the guide and the policy, and we felt that there were 4 changes that could be made to the policy that we should go and consult on. These changes are more impactful for the trade and for the public, and therefore we feel that this has to go out to full consultation. So the first change, as we've already discussed this morning, relates to 15.13 of the policy, and that's regarding the training of drivers in loading wheelchairs and wheelchair users into wheelchair accessible vehicles. This consultation will ask whether training around the use of loading and securing a wheelchair and their users safely should be made mandatory, and if so, what form that should take. The second change relates to 17.1 of the policy, and this is for drivers to do daily checks of their licensed vehicles when they get into the vehicle. And this consultation will ask whether these daily checks should be made mandatory, and how would they be completed, and where would the records be held, and what would the enforcement be. The third change relates to 17.72 of the policy, and where the private hire vehicles should display operator's sign. This consultation will ask whether the requirement to display operator's signs should be removed, any potential impacts that this could have on public safety. This is where, at the moment, if you are operating from an operator, you have to have the operator's sign on your door with the number for a complaint. What the guide is saying, because as we've already spoke about today, there are a number of different platforms now. Drivers could be using a number of different platforms and a number of different operators, and whether they then have to whether they need to have that operator's sign on the door or not, because they would have to use from one operator to another as and when with our current policy. But there is a public safety impact of that, so we're asking to consult for that if that's a change that we want to make as a licensing authority. And then the fourth change relates to 33.5 of the policy, and this is the length of time somebody has to hold a DVL licence before they can apply for a taxi driver. Currently, it's 12 months, but the consultation will be asking whether that should be extended to 24 months for somebody to hold a DVL licence before becoming a taxi driver. So the recommendation, as Chair has said, is on page 11 to approve the changes made in the policy, the minor changes made into policy as per the track changes in Appendix 1, which is page 17, and to agree for officers to go out to consult on the proposed changes of the policy as detailed in Appendix 2 on page 79. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sure you've picked it up anyway, members, but the changes that the officers just outlined is at 4.6 on page 12 down to 4.17 on page 13. So it's those two blocks there, because I know there's a lot of stuff here, so pardon me, I'm sure you've already picked that up, and pardon me for just pointing that out. I thought it might be helpful. Any questions? Yeah, please.
I have a question relating to one of the minor changes. It's in reference to point 15.7, referring to certifying documentations to determine a working service dog. According to Assistance Dogs UK, their member organisations will provide an ID booklet with details relating to the dog's training. However, there is no law requiring any ID for assistance dogs, so if a dog is accredited through an organisation unaffiliated with Assistance Dogs UK, they will not have any certifying documents. Therefore, we need to consider the options of do nothing and find that, as now, some assistance dogs are being refused transportation. If assistance dogs are legally allowed everywhere, including private hire vehicles and taxis, then no ID is required and penalties are for any refusals, or Cambridge creates their own ID document.
So could you just clarify exactly what the question is? Because the officer's not quite sure what your question is. I caught the last bit about Cambridge City Council perhaps producing their own identification for these assistance dogs, but was that the only question, or did you have other specific questions for the officer to respond to? But your point is well made. You've told me something I didn't know, though.
Thank you. My question was as to whether Cambridge should create their own ID document and then taxis could require that for assistance dogs, or to not have this minor change and therefore allow assistance dogs to continue to be allowed in private hire vehicles and prosecute as per the law if they are refused and evidence is found of this.
Okay, thank you for that.
I would have, we would, obviously the Equalities Act says that taxis must take assistant dogs. We need to look into when we say assistant dog, how do we know it's an assistant dog? So I think that's something we would have to take away. But obviously, I would want to make sure that we're following national guidance around how we identify what an assistant dog is. The main point we're trying to make in the policy is it is a requirement for drivers to take assistant dogs, and I think that's what the policy is outlining to the trade around. There is a mandatory requirement to carry assistant dogs, but we can look into what is the identification and how do we identify what an assistant dog is. But that can be done separately outside of this policy decision. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the question is well made, really, because I can see what you mean. I guess you can't say every time, but quite often you will understand that somebody who's got an assistance dog, that's their role, that's what they're actually doing. And I guess if we were going to go down the road, we don't know yet, but having that person having to produce an identification that dog is actually trained to a national standard could be quite problematic, I guess. But I can see the reason for your question, and it's certainly got us thinking about it. So thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Moore, did you wish to speak, or did I? Perhaps I did. I thought you were indicating. Perhaps you weren't. Sorry.
Maybe you're a mind reader. I was thinking about it. I think that my fellow councillor has raised a really good point, that there is a concern around whether, how these dogs are certified, and you obviously don't want to prevent someone that needs an assistance dog travelling with them. My only concern would be that a Cambridge city scheme then limits people from outside of the city. Obviously, people could travel here with their dogs. So my concern would be around using that. But I think that this is a really good point, that we need to be careful that we're not limiting who can travel with their assistance dog. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a good point. Councillor Flaberg, I bet it was you I saw indicating, wasn't it? Thank you.
Just to clarify, I'm not sure about this, but I think that dogs who are required to go with the customers, they usually have to have a collar. And depending on the color, you identify if they are, if they are guided dogs. But I'm not completely sure about this, but I think I've seen this sort of clarification in the past, but not completely sure if it was in the UK.
Councillor Bird.
Yeah, you are right. There is different coloured jackets for different kinds of disabilities. And of course now we have the assistant dogs for children with autism and stuff. So I think which would help, to clarify it, would be to get perhaps a little map which shows you which dogs and which colours are used for which disabilities. I think that would perhaps help the taxi drivers as well.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think it's good for the general public also to understand what that's all about. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Young.
I see that we are allowing the subcommittees to go down to 2 members. I was just wondering why that was. I mean, I think it's 3 is a nice number. I'm slightly concerned there's only 2 people going to be on there.
I think that's under exceptional circumstances. We would always try for 3, but in previous subcommittees, we've only ever had 2, but our policy currently just says 3. It doesn't give us the option of having 2. So that would be only for an exception for 2, because we are struggling to sometimes get 3. So it was just a clarification that whilst our policy says 3, subcommittees aren't technically allowed to go ahead with only 2, but because we put 2 in there now, that will be if we are struggling to get 3 members.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we are now having a change that all new vehicles need to be wheelchair accessible. On page 35, I think. I just wondered, there was also some discussion about that on page 50. Where am I? Yeah. So that's 15.4. And then on page 50, there seemed to be still, I was wondering whether those amendments had been pushed through. Maybe you can check that later. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I've understood that differently. I've understood that to be that we're maintaining 50% wheelchair accessible vehicles across the fleet. Is that?
That's how I understood it too. Yeah, I can see it at point 7 on the bottom of page 50.
Okay, so hang on, maybe I've misunderstood. Let's go back to page 35. It says all new, 15.4 now says all new Hackney carriages must be wheelchair accessible vehicles. Okay.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there, Councillor Young, but of course, as Councillor Moore was saying, all new Hackney carriages, plate 121 to 441, must be wheelchair accessible vehicles, not all Hackney carriage vehicles, just all vehicles within those plate numbers.
Okay.
Are you happy with that, Yvonne?
So I think what it is our previous policy says since 1999, all new Hackney carriages needed to be wheelchair accessible. Prior to 1999, which was plates 1 to 121, they had the option of being either wheelchair accessible or saloon, or non-wheelchair accessible, should I say, rather than saloon. So most of those plates from 1 to 121 were given the grandfather rights to remain as saloon cars, even though they're Hackney carriages. All new Hackneys after that date had to be wheelchair accessible until 2018, when we brought in our environmental consideration policy that then said to support the green agenda, we said that a certain amount of our wheelchair accessibles could revert back to non-wheelchair accessibles but be electric. So we said that 50% of our fleet are now going to be wheelchair accessible. Those plates that were green plates, as we call them, have all been absorbed. So we are now going back to all new Hackneys must be wheelchair accessible. Does that make sense?
Councillor Clough.
Just so I can understand, what you're saying is that from 1 to 120, they can be either 21 to 441 have to be wheelchair accessible. And then what happens above that?
Sorry. The 50 plates above 441 are what we call green plates or environmental consideration plates, which will be electric or ultra-low vehicles only. And we've got 50 of those plates to support the green, our air quality agenda.
Okay, so the plates run out at 500, is that what it's saying? There's only 500 plates in the city?
No, there's actually 321 plates. So we have a limitation. So a limitation was brought in a couple of years, 9 years ago now, where we limited the number of Hackney carriages by 321 plates. The plates don't always run concurrently because once a plate comes off the fleet, we go to the next number. We don't replace the plate with the existing plate. We go to the next number. It's an administrative thing. What we need to know, what you need to know as members is that we have got a limitation of 321. How we administer that back in the office, we've got a system.
Any other questions? Sorry, did you wish to come back on that? Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you there.
I just wanted to confess to being slightly confused now, but no, it's fine. That's fine. I understand. It's very helpful to see, have an insight into how the plate numbers are allocated or reallocated. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
I think it is quite confusing, but the purpose is to maintain 50% wheelchair accessible vehicles in the Hackney carriage fleet. Yeah.
That's right. So the box 7 at the bottom of page 50 is exactly what it is. Yeah. But it's always worth looking at these things and clarifying. These things do get quite complicated, don't they? Especially when you've not been on licensing before. And sometimes it's easy to forget. What we take for granted is not always perfectly clear. So thank you for bringing it up. That's absolutely fine. And are there any other questions from members before we go to recommendations? Okay. Are members happy to take both those recommendations together, or would you like to take them separately?
Yeah, I think I had some questions about the beyond the minor points.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, please.
But I appreciate the fact that these points have been raised in the minor section. They're very valuable. What I didn't really understand, I don't know, can I ask the question now? Yeah. What I didn't quite understand was this vehicle condition check. What was that involved? Was the actual driver going to be doing on taking over, or at the beginning of his shift, if it's his own vehicle, what were they physically going to be doing and looking for?
Just for members' clarity, can you just tell us what page you're on? I've got it here, but everybody might not.
Page 79. The out for consultation number 2 and 6.13 vehicle condition check.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Okay, so in the guidance, which is guidance, I'm just trying to find it, it does suggest that a vehicle, a drive, because obviously you get a number of drivers driving one vehicle if it's on a shift. So the idea was that, like you do if you get in a bus or a plane, any type of public transport, the driver's responsibility for that vehicle while they're driving that vehicle. So it would be a visual check, so checking the tyres, checking the lights are working. So it would be a visual quick check that the driver looks at the vehicle before they get in. But again, it will be onerous for the driver, but it does ensure that the driver is taking responsibility for that vehicle when they get in the car. And it's around, again, public safety whilst people are travelling in a public service vehicle. But again, it's out for consultation. It's an item on the guidance that we weren't 100% sure whether that was a practical thing to do or not. But with the guidance as well, the guidance does state that we have to have good reasons not to follow the guidance. And this is one element we feel, if we go out to consult, we've then justified the reason, what our outcome or what our reasoning is. But we haven't come to that conclusion, hence the consultation.
I think my question is there a checklist of things they're meant to do? So are they meant to, you mentioned checking the lights, checking your brake lights, going around and there's no there's no damage on the vehicle and such. But does it go beyond that?
No, it's a visual. It's a visual check of when the vehicle. There will be a checklist, and that's what we'll go out to consult. We'll go out and consult. Do you want this checklist? If you do, do you like the format of the checklist? Will it be easy to use? The questions will be: where would it be stored? Who would handle that? How would we check that? So it's those. So when we go out and do our vehicle checks on wherever we go with the officers, that's one thing we could then ask to look at. Have you done the check on your vehicle this morning? Yes or no? Can we have a look at it? How come you've got bald tyres when you told me you've just checked the vehicle? So it's those sort of things. But the consultation will map out how it would work practically if that's something we agree to go down.
Okay, so logically it would need to be something in the vehicle that they would have done and recorded. That's what you're thinking about, is it?
Or possibly on an app or on a tablet or on their phone that they can then just show us. So again, that's the whole point of the consultation, is how would it be best? Some drivers might feel a logbook in the glove compartment would be better. Some drivers might think, actually, I want to have the thingy on my app or my phone that I can do as a PDF. So that's what would go out to consult.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Bird.
I won't take long, Chair, but just to say that when I learned to drive a few years back, many years back, I was told that you should always check your vehicle before you drive off. Your lights, make sure your lights are working, indicators, your tyres and all that. And we all do it when we go on a long journey, but we should do it more often. So it's the same sort of checks we do of our own cars. Thank you, Chair.
Says it in Highway Code as well, still. Pretty sad, I know that really, isn't it? Are there any other questions? Okay, so I'll just pop back to what I was saying. Are members content to do the two recommendations, or would you like to do them separately? Okay, in that case then, 1.1, recommendations 1 and 2 on page 11. All those in favour of those recommendations?
That's unanimous in favour.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the business for today's meeting. Thank you very much, and for the contribution of both our speakers. They're very much appreciated. Thank you.